I've got something new for you today. Uh, we're going to be starting to do a Bible study, and we're going to be going through the book of Matthew. So this Bible study, what I'd like for you to do today is just going to be an intro. But what I would like for you to do is to try to read through the book of Matthew or listen through it. It doesn't matter if you read through or listen to. But I want you to get a feel for what the book of Matthew is just by reading through it first. That'll help you submit kind of the ideas together. It also help you kind of know what's coming up ahead and help build the context of the book of Matthew when we're going through it. So first, read through the book of Matthew, and then we're going to go back and take it kind of one section at a time and go through and really study in detail kind of the book of Matthew. So the book of Matthew, Matthew was originally known as Levi, and the book of Matthew is pretty undisputably written by Matthew. Now, Matthew was originally called Levi, like I said. When you see him referred to in the Bible by other disciples, they refer to him as Levi. Now, his name, Matthew, means gift of the Lord. So Matthew's purpose in writing this gospel is to show how Jesus meets the kingly Messiah that the Jews were looking for. Now, this was the long-awaited Messiah, and he goes through and points out how he is a part of the kingly line, and basically throughout the whole book, he just points out how Jesus claims to be the king of the Jews. The audience appears to be Jews for this book, and that's pretty obvious in the way he wrote it. He refers to several things in Judaism and doesn't really explain them. The fact that the book starts off in the genealogy and it starts off with Abraham, there's kind of an expectation there that the audience knows the importance of starting with Abraham. So throughout the whole book, like I said, there's he refers to the Old Testament quite a bit. I think over 60 times he quotes the Old Testament, and that all just kind of puts together, if you weren't a Jew at this time, you probably wouldn't understand this gospel as easily without it explained to you. But luckily we have the Old Testament and we can study all of it. So as the historical setting, this book was written somewhere between 50 to 70 AD. Now 70 AD is when the destruction of the temple occurs. But we believe it was written before that. And this is one of the early books. So this is probably the first of the Gospels to be written. Of course, Matthew is going to go through the conception of Christ all the way through the death of Christ and the resurrection. So another historical setting that's important with this is it takes place in the Roman Empire. So this is when Rome has taken captive Israel, so Israel is under Roman control, and this is an important kind of theme throughout it. Just the historical, gives you the historical background. Now let's look at Matthew again. Matthew was a tax collector when he right before he became a disciple. So a tax collector, publican, same thing. They basically were hated in this culture. They would actually be hired by the Roman government to go and collect taxes, and they would oftentimes distort the collection, and they would collect more than they had to, if you want to call it that, to make a profit. And they would not just make a little profit, they would make large sums of profit. So these people were hated. They were kind of saw as leeches on the society. They weren't really well respected. So when you go through and read through the book of Matthew, be looking for those, that theme that, Matthew is pointing out that Jesus meets all the criteria to be the king of the Jews, and that, Jesus is God himself. So, be looking through that as you read through it, and I'll be cranking out the first section. The first study we're going to do is going to be Matthew chapter 1. We're going to go through verse 1 through 17, and that's the genealogy. So we're going to start off kind of in a more difficult starting point, but I think you'll see with the genealogy, there's actually a bunch in genealogies that, isn't very obvious, but if you study it closely, the genealogies are actually very interesting. And especially with Matthew, this one's very interesting. So we'll go through the genealogy next time I come back on and do this Bible study. It'll probably be about a half a week from now. So not a lot of time to read through Matthew, but if you can, go ahead and do it. If you don't get through it, no sweat. Just, join me anyways. And then you can catch up eventually. But read through the book of Matthew, and I'll see you next time. And we'll go through Matthew 1 through 17.